We are controlling transmission. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. Thrill to the awe and mystery of the hidden world, the outer limits. You will journey into strange realms of science fiction. You will journey through uncharted galaxies from the inner mind of man to the outer limits. The outer limits. Every week on ABC.
For artists that want to follow a realistic style, I don't know that you necessarily have to overthink about an influence like me or any other painter who does realism. You can certainly get a lot from the pieces that we've done, maybe even imitate some of those compositions, but I think you'll find your own way once you're just studying reality, which is what I would do. I mean, if I'm going to look at people, things, photographs, it's beneficial to start For artists that want to follow a realistic style, I don't know that you necessarily have to overthink about an influence like me or any other painter who does realism. You can certainly get a lot from the pieces that we've done, maybe even imitate some of those compositions, but I think you'll find your own way once you're just studying reality, which is what I would do. I mean, if I'm going to look at people, things, photographs, it's beneficial to start shooting your own if you can get into that. And these days, since everybody's got a camera, that's not so much of an issue anymore. Being able to study life as the basis for something is the best. I had the longest problem of thinking I needed to have everybody and every element be perfect before I could use it as a reference source. And so it took me a long time to realize how flexible the basis of the human form is. I've posed for myself on loads of paintings where now I guess I'm called out by some people online. It's a process of getting your mind comfortable with what you're building off of. And at a certain point, I would say accept that you're going to feel like you're not seeing it until you've seen it. You know, that maybe you do need to have a thing look like a thing exactly before you're painting from it.
Welcome back, everybody. It is time for the finale to this podcast, To the Outer Limits. We got a good full house here. John Suntress, Gabe Hardman, Ian Brill, Jeff Parker, William Meyer. Welcome, and we are talking about the final two episodes. And I've got the card right here that William made: the Premonition and the Probe.
Yeah, those images you picked make it look a lot more exciting than it is.
That's my intention.
But yeah, I mean, you know, look. So maybe we are going out on a little bit of a whimper here, but it's but we'll still try to make an entertaining podcast for you, even if they were incapable of making entertaining episodes to close out this series. So does somebody want to recap the Premonition? Who's better?
We should have drawn straws.
Yeah. If not, I can do it. Okay, fine, I will. A test pilot abruptly sort of crashes in the desert while flying an X-15 jet, a real jet. And you know it's a real jet because there's an enormous amount of stock footage to justify its existence in this thing. And at the same time, his wife crashes her car into a rock or whatever in the desert. They are both sort of unstuck or possibly like thrown slightly backwards in time, but time moves forward at a slower rate, and so they have to both find their way out of this, and then eventually, way too eventually, save their daughter from a slow-moving truck that's going to run over her while she sits on a trike forever. That's as good as I got.
That guy back there who has about the same amount of hair as the rest of us is called Baldy. There's Baldy.
Nice, great.
He's one of the only one. He's one of the only ones who's actually holding a freeze pose. The rest of the time they do it with stills.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, so a huge downside to this episode is the optical freeze frames that they do in order to get across this idea that time is not frozen but moving so unbelievably slow that it's imperceptible. And yet they are freeze frames of pre-existing stock footage that have giant scratches and pieces of dirt on them that are just floating in the air. And I think that's while I don't fault them, they had to get this thing done. This was the episode where they all found out it was definitely canceled while they were shooting it. It was
They should have waited to tell them.
No, apparently, according to Gerd Oswald, who directed this one, who directed, some of the best episodes of the first season, they basically came to him and said, look, you have, preface this by initially Don Gordon was going to star in this episode, right? Much better actor Don Gordon than Dewey Martin. Yeah, and I think Don Gordon wouldn't have saved this episode. He didn't save the one about the the amusement park ride going to space, but he is a significantly better actor and has more charisma and brought more to it. And but apparently he got sick the night before. They ended up having to push a whole day, and they only had 6 days or something at this point. So they lost a day, and then the studio came to them and said, "We don't care that you lost a day. You get this done on the same schedule, or even if you don't finish shooting the ending, we don't care." Right? That was the level of confidence behind this, this show, which was obviously canceled, but they just did not give a fuck what had to happen in order to just get this thing out there and done.
To explain the sci-fi here again, Dewey Martin in his supersonic jet, as opposed to breaking the sound barrier, has broken the time barrier, and they are at least at the start, several seconds into the future in this weird frozen realm, and time is moving, but it's moving slower. And Mary Murphy, his wife, was driving near where the guy was in the plane, and that essentially the time barrier sonic boom affected the whole area from ground to wherever he broke Mach 6, and because of that, that's why her car was affected just as much as his X-15 or whatever it was at that point.
Although there were guys just standing around next to it that weren't affected by it. It's like an election map. They gerrymandered the area that's affected by this.
Well, they weren't able to move certain things, but then of course they could move. They could light flares to scare the.
They were in the car.
Oh, that's right. They were.
Yeah, that is true. They were. Yes, that's true. They and the seat belts that they use in order to kind of figure their way out of this, or at least out of the situation with their kid getting run over.
And there was a coyote chasing a jackrabbit.
Yes, it was. Which reminded me of Sexy Beast and the fever dream that Ray Winston has, I guess, in that movie. But of course, that was 30 years later, so probably not related.
Right. Probably not.
Although that time barrier might have caused all that. Who knows?
Speaking on the composites, I did like the freeze frame of the tutor or teacher chasing the girl on the tricycle.
Yeah.
And it was frozen on the left side of the screen, and then the parents were running up on the right. And I was just watching for that seam and I didn't really see it.
Yeah, it's actually that, that was sort of expertly done with hiding that seam. You really don't see it. The one thing you see in that shot though are the shadows are going different directions. So they shot one side of it earlier in the day, then they shot the second side of it. So like one shadow's going one way, one's going the other. It's fine. Nobody notices this shit. It's like I don't think that's even a criticism of it. I mean, that's just what they had to do in the amount of time they had. But
the reason Hardman's going to hate this episode is because it's got a lot of shoe leather. Like a lot.
Yes.
Because they literally run back and forth across the desert something like 5 times.
It's endless. It is endless. And and not only, and I just can't deal with this, but there is the shoe leather aspect of it. But when in that second unit shot that they shot out at what's it called? I wrote down I can't Palos Verdes Air Force Base. There is a fucking fence, a kind of like a cyclone fence type thing that runs along the edge of the property. They run all the way down it. We watch them all the way down, turn the corner, run all the way back again. It hurts me, it hurts me to spend that kind of time, not only on shoe leather, but literally seeing them run around the entire way around a fence. And then they do it again on the way out. It's astounding. But they filled the time, I suppose.
It's funny. Prior to seeing this one again, going back to what you said, Gabe, I did conflate this one with the Don Gordon episode. And when I saw the description, was expecting Don Gordon instead of the perplexed Dewey Martin.
Well, I mean, I think also this one is one of those that people think is a Twilight Zone, and there's a good reason. I mean, it feels like a very
totally
overlong
like
Twilight Zone. Yeah.
There is a Twilight Zone a lot like it.
Yeah.
I don't remember if the guy slaps his wife to restore calm.
Right.
That's the 60s. Oh, you have to slap the woman sometimes.
There's an intriguing character we haven't brought up yet, who is the time prisoner, for lack of a better term.
The Limbo Man.
He's called the
Limbo
Man. Yeah, in the credits.
They're on the top
It's
left
Danny
corner.
Kaye painted silver.
So if I've understood this properly, he was in the situation they are in, where he was thrown out of time and sort of maladjusted in his own sort of pocket, and he had an opportunity to return to normal time, just like the married couple does, but he was unable to do so, and so is stuck in this temporal limbo. And it made me think, since we don't learn how that happened to him,
Right.
This world could be just overflowing with people trapped in this sort of. I mean, that would be great.
I mean, leaving that open in a way is kind of neat. In another way, it's kind of like his character is totally useless and he just shows up to give them exposition. So,
Right.
I mean,
What's he afraid of?
What? I don't remember.
Remember, he's afraid of something.
Fire.
Oh, fuck, of course. He's afraid of fire.
Like a Frankenstein. Yes, I know it's because he would burn for all eternity or whatever. But
without being consumed.
It just made me think, because I never get to be the one who arbitrarily links things to Star Trek. It's always you two, or sometimes Ian. But it just made me think of Malcolm McDowell's "Time is the fire in which we burn."
Yeah, not bad. It's my favorite.
Fantastic.
My favorite part of that movie too, just him saying that line.
Right. Right.
It's like, why does this movie suddenly get a really cool line?
Yeah, because they cast Malcolm McDowell and they had a good line, so that was all. The greatness of that movie was encapsulated in those couple of seconds.
But the way they present where the couple is and where Negative Man is here, it almost seems like he's in a third dimension, that they are 10 seconds in the future. You've got everybody stuck in the static, slow-moving present or whatever. And then, Negative Man seems like that's why, as much as he's afraid of the fire, I don't understand how it could hurt him.
How it could affect him, yeah.
Because he seems to be intangible, whereas the couple is solid.
Right. Well, so I guess that So this one was initially written by the guy Ib Melchior, right? The sci-fi writer who, he also wrote, Angry Red Planet, Reptilicus, Robinson Crusoe on Mars, Time Trap.
Not to be confused with Iwerks, the fine former Disney animator.
It's true. I was just thinking that as well. Like,
apparently, this was Ib's kind of. He was really working on something here because you can tell he has some ideas.
Right.
It gets chewed up, and of course, some of it doesn't work. Like, good thing they left all the doors open on the base because they couldn't affect anything outside of their own little circle. So they would never have been able to get in there.
Did that missing production day, Gabriel, do you know, did that account for pages being lost?
No, I think it was what accounted for it was just that the original, as I've understand it, the original, Ib Melchior version of this was much more ambitious and longer. They weren't married. They went off in different directions for parts of it. It was, there were like, not to say that it was better, but there were different solutions for how things worked, and it was just like a generally more ambitious, like something that would maybe make a feature or something. And so it was too much for this show to deal with, and certainly on the budget that they were dealing with at that point. So they had Sam Roca, I think his name is, come in and just do a draft that hacked it down and made it something like digestible that they could actually shoot. So I think that a lot of it in a lot of these things, I think we see there are interesting ideas that kind of like emergent ideas that we want to see in here and we want them to be able to elaborate on. But for budget reasons and because the people who were making this season were a little hacky, they would just come in and kind of rework it into something manageable without thinking a lot about what the good parts of the original content were.
I'll say that being a fan of Philip Kaufman's Right Stuff and that period of test pilots and breaking the sound barrier, I did kind of appreciate a lot of the stock footage and at least the basic concept of.
I agree. I think there is something good here, and there could have been something good here. I don't think it's a horrendous episode. I just don't think that it really works and doesn't really do much.
The image, though, that I kind of spoke to me in a time travel science fiction motif was, and I thought it was cool, the two automobiles that she had. So like she crashes, but then right behind her is the same car with her in it.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a good shot. That was good.
Yeah, I agree. And the plane is up in the air, and I mean that weird disconnect thing is cool. The and this that we're looking at right now, the crash set is good. They apparently got that from the military. For whatever reason they let them borrow it. I still don't quite understand. I was trying to look into this because they only made 3 X-15s, right? And in the stock footage at the beginning, we see every one of them, right? Each shot is a different X-15, and that has a different number, 1 to 3 number on it, I think. And so, where that buck is that they got that piece of of crash ship. I mean, I get maybe it's just some I don't know, trainer prototype. I don't know what the hell. I don't really get it.
Simulator. It's like this is. Hal Jordan's simulator that Abin Sur intercepted.
Yes, that's actually that's a comic book and it was drawn on a page. I'm talking about real things that people would have gotten somewhere and brought to the location.
Can you read it?
Wow. Ian,
if it wasn't the last episode before, now it is.
All right, sorry, I've been taking too much of the I piss off John into the actual episode. Sorry.
Are you kidding? It is half the reason I show up every week.
You're the only character in all the episodes.
That's right.
That's right. Let us once again state that
we got to mention the one thing that we keep coming back to that gives the characters the gravitas of it is the fact that their daughter is about to be run over by a truck.
Yes.
Yeah.
The world's worst minder of the preschool or whatever goes out to get them ice cream, takes their ice cream orders, takes off. The little girl runs out on a tricycle and then some slack ass at Edwards Air Force Base or wherever doesn't put on the brake to the truck because like these guys just take it easy, I guess. And
First day.
so they look at it.
This is the place where they leave all the doors open. So
Yeah, they leave all the doors
yeah,
open. The low security airport landing field, and they look at the speedometer and they see that it's going up, so they know that the truck is rolling, which is again nice storytelling to figure out by frozen moments what's happening. Because the mom, being a mom, notices that now her daughter's foot is on the pedal and it wasn't before, and that's all great stuff. The way they solve it kind of convolutes it all because he we'll cut the seat belts out of the car, the thing we can affect. And then he does this whole rigging thing with the brake when all you had to do was stick it through the spokes of her tricycle and she would have stopped right there. I guess maybe this rules out the truck possibly pulling out and turning at her. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, but again, what's with the daycare center in the military base?
I love
That
was very forward thinking, I think.
That they keep them in a cage like animals. Yeah.
And poor man's Rosemarie is in charge of them. Sally Rogers, all that's missing is her black bow.
Yeah, this is like it's like a storage area on the lot. Every place that we're looking at it's literally what it is. It's not, everything that's not like a big wide shot is just on the studio lot. Those are stages and we're seeing the backs of stuff and everything. So like whatever that area is just like some scene dock type place or some place to just store shit, right? And the idea that, I give them credit in a way for trying to improv this, but the idea that is that they just keep the children in a cage is, and then they're like, and then they bribe them with ice cream to stay in a cage,
Here's the ball, throw it
work for me.
You only get about 3 square feet right there, but good luck to you. I think
the lady
Janie broke out, but that's awesome that Janie broke out on the trike.
I think though the minder was going to make it though. That's like that woman can catch the tricycle. Come on.
Yeah, and I
or
think
swap places.
Bet your child's life on it. It was also nice of the limbo man to tell them exactly what they needed to do to get back into their own time. It's like for a second you think he's going to try to take the place of one of them.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
What I thought, yeah.
But then he kind of does a little taking as well. But you got to get back there. 2 people have to get back out. Like, really? Can't he go sit in the car with them and maybe get out? I don't know.
He could try.
Well, if I didn't already say this, like Selig Lester inserted that character in the screenplay in order to have any kind of a scary guy, so he was very proud of himself. I think that was who did. And then he was very proud of himself that he did that, but to appease the network. But, it mostly just, he delivers some exposition and tells them what to do, which is it makes it too easy for them. But it also is, he's just not, he doesn't really affect anything otherwise. And it brings up a lot of questions that you don't need to be asking, I think.
Yeah, he's a little creepy.
Yeah.
Jeff brought up Star Trek, and this concept made me think of 2 different Star Trek episodes.
I didn't want that.
You didn't want that.
Jeff was trying to head Star Trek off at the pass here and get it out of the way.
I
Possible.
see.
No, please go.
The first one it reminded me of was of the original series, Wink of an Eye, where the Enterprise encounters a species who is moving so fast you don't know they're there, and they kind of sound like a insect buzzing. Mm-hmm. And then Kirk goes into their time, and then you get all these great shots of Scotty and Mr. Spock moving imperceptibly slow, and they have to learn to communicate to each other across this time differential. And then
the lovely Barbara Boucher as the hot blonde, I believe, that is in fast mode. What is this thing called? Love and Kiss.
Oh, is that episode?
I think that's Barbara Boucher. It sure so looks like her.
That's every 3rd episode, I guess. But
yeah.
And then the other one, real quick, was Next Generation, Timescape. Do you guys remember this one where there's a accident with a Romulan starship,
Yep.
and everybody is frozen in time, and then they have to sort of do a detective figure out how this accident happened and how to undo it.
And the pockets of the time difference are in different places. And my favorite moment of that is inside the shuttle, Captain Picard reaches for withered fruit that has already decomposed and is nearly dust, and his hand gets caught in the time portal, and his fingers grow at an alarming fast rate, and his whole hand puffs up, and it's a great kind of kind of moment. So that, and also when he goes crazy because they have containment fields to keep them unaffected by the time differences, and Captain Picard kind of goes schizo for a second because of his lack of oxygen or whatever. Pretty cool.
That was a good callback. Before you get into the probe, which is impossible to not talk about Star Trek with, I want to say one thing this episode did for me personally. I was reading about Ed Melchior, and it solved a problem of this movie I saw as a kid that I could not figure out what it was, no matter how many crazy search terms I've entered over the years. He wrote and directed a movie called The Time Travelers.
Yeah, I have a poster for it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
On Amazon Prime, I believe.
If only I had realized the last time I was at your house, that was what the movie I couldn't figure out.
Right.
Because it really bothered me as a kid, because they end up, he's exploring this idea much further, and the people end up trapped in a time loop. It's a very unhappy ending for a 60s movie. Even before Planet of the Apes, and it's like they're stuck in the loop. They can't get out, and then it just ends. And it really disturbed me as a kid. And then as watching this and then looking up, I was like, this must have been the movie.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And this is obviously sort of a kind of riff on the ideas from that movie. I believe this was after it.
It was after. Looking that up to confirm it. Time Travelers was 64, and this is early 65. So yeah, we're literally about a month after my birth. Not that anyone cares.
Well, I'm sure somebody cares. My parents cared, and
yes,
all of the tri-state area cares.
Yeah, look, all of your listeners care. John, come on, everybody's here for you.
I had no idea. Steve Ernest claims there's two different versions of the Time Travelers. Maybe there's one with a happier ending, but it is on Amazon Prime, and it's also available on Epix. And what else did I see? Also on the Roku channel, apparently.
Okay, well, that's what I'm going to be watching this weekend then.
All right. Yeah, me too.
Time Travelers, yes.
Probably not going to pay off the way I want it to. But.
And, of course, Robinson Crusoe on Mars with Adam West.
Which creeped me out because it had the little monkey, and he gets he run into a big brain or something, or what happens to the monkey?
I can't remember now.
Oh, no, the monkey makes it to the end, doesn't he? I could have sworn he does. Because
he's so cool, though. He has his little helmet. It's really cute.
Right, yeah. I do remember that. I don't remember.
By Byron Haskins, who directed many Outer Limits, and he directed the one with Adam West going to Mars.
That's right.
Yep.
And they have oxygen pills.
All right, so there you go. That's.
I think we did that one.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, slightly worse episode in comparison, and that, of course, is The Probe.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So The Probe is, you could call it a bottle show, but it is, that's not technically, I don't think what it is. That's about using standing sets, and they don't have any. It's just an unbelievably cheap show. It's, built to be a very cheap show about some people flying to Tokyo who get caught in a hurricane, and thinking their plane has crashed, they awake in a sort of nebulous world of mist, thinking they're on the ocean. But then they find out, they realize that no, there's a floor under them, and that floor is plastic. And then, like 5 minutes later, a guy walks over to the wall and goes, "Hey, this wall is plastic, like the floor." And then the episode goes on. The episode goes on like that in an unbelievably repetitive way for quite a while.
The episode really assumes that we'll find clothes getting dry to be fascinating. They really bet the farm on that.
Yeah, that's again because I'm sure the writer of the episode had just gone through a car wash and was at the end, dealing with the blowers. And it's like, hey, that's a good idea. Let me
Your jacket is now dry.
Yep.
That's Back to the Future Part 2 quote. That's my favorite line from the movie.
They're ultimately they are as any moron could tell 11 seconds into their circumstances. They're inside a probe that's from an alien probe. There are several things about it that weirdly suggest that they have been shrunk down tiny, but that ultimately is not the case. And even the opening narration mentions something like that. You have this amoeba creature that you're assuming is, they're tiny and that's a normal sized amoeba or whatever.
Right,
and
sure.
And there's the scaled up laboratory equipment, which doesn't really make sense for the scale, but whatever. So it is a little bit of a mess of ideas, but or lack of ideas. I'm not sure. So the huge problem I have with this episode is that everybody at every moment, they have nothing really to go on. They just make shit up that explains what's going on in their circumstance.
Especially him.
And everything they say is right. They didn't speculate on things that got them into trouble and created more problems. They just guess everything that's going on, and they're right about all of it.
And it's not like this is a group of scientists. This is just a flight crew on a plane.
And it's just unbelievably lazy writing, right? It's setting up a thing where you have a circumstance that people are in, and instead of doing the work and having, like telling your story in a even marginally sophisticated way, you just have your characters blurt out all the information you need, even though they could never know it. And that's not such good writing.
You know what my favorite part is? Besides that, at about the 30-minute mark, you get a good shadow of the boom mic drift in over.
I think it was the camera crane, but go ahead.
You're probably right. It just looked, something was hanging by it's a little pivot.
Yeah.
And that was kind of funny. But my favorite thing is when they come in and then they look at the glyphs that are being projected. And the first thing he says, is it Hebrew? And then she goes, no, nor Etruscan or Syrian. And then suddenly she's an expert in languages. And this becomes a proto version of Arrival.
Yes, you're right. Oh, I didn't think of that.
Right. And it's
She
great.
knows a lot about languages, and man, it's like and they keep trying to repeat a pattern just like Arrival to try to teach them how to talk.
I can read glyphs, and I also make excellent coffee, because essentially I'm assuming this is, it's a cargo plane, but not to be an asshole, but probably a stewardess.
Well, no, I think that she was wasn't she like a passenger
married to the pilot or engaged to the pilot.
Okay. Well,
Mark Richmond, everybody.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Mark Richmond, who we will remember from the Borderland, the very early episode, the first regular episode.
And William Meyer, which Next Generation episode does Mark Richmond show up in?
Oh, God. I could see it.
I sort of know.
It's mad and yelling at people, but
it's the one where they thaw people out.
The neutral zone, right?
Yeah.
You are both correct. Exactly right. Ian, I was hoping you'd jump in as well, but that's all right. I didn't direct the question.
I could see him. I was in the same place, right?
All right, very good. Yeah, he is the 20th century industrialist who doesn't understand, in the 24th century, we don't have the currency. Everyone is able to do what they want until we created Star Trek Picard, and my former first officer is living in a trailer in the desert and is a deadbeat mother. Back to you.
Right. That doesn't have anything to do with economics. That's a human thing and whatever. But it's that episode always kind of felt a little bit like a Love Boat or something to me with that part with the people coming in and they're
the country singers shoot
exactly. Oh God, I forgot about that part. Now I'm depressed. Okay.
Wait, is that the one where the businessman says he's lying? Looking at the screen to the whatever alien they're dealing with.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So he essentially does Troy's
work
job better than her
Right, and exactly the same thing that these people are doing all through the probe, which is just guess shit, and it turns out to be true.
Well,
here we go. Wait, Steve's got a great point here. Peggy Ann Garner played the young Jane Eyre in the Joan Fontaine Orson Welles.
Oh,
And was married to the fantastic character actor Albert Salmi, who, goddamn, in Twilight Zone of Late I Think of Cliffordville, the time travel episode there with Julie Newmar, where the devil makes a deal with the old man to go back in time and relive his life and change a few things, and it ends up screwing his fortune. And
you going back in time and reliving a few things? You mean every third episode of the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or again, the basis for Star Trek Picard. How you doing, everybody?
All right, sure.
Is that or playing cool against the best?
So Albert Salmi's wife, everybody, Peggy Ann.
Interesting. That was a very informative, interesting comment.
No relation to James Garner, but continue.
Jan Prohaska is in this. Damn it!
He plays the amoeba. Yeah.
At least in the final episode, Jan comes back. So.
And it's Jonas, I believe, Prohaska.
He knew him.
Not to correct you, but
no, but it's like he's that's the familiar. So
okay, yeah, he's like I didn't realize Jeff was powerful.
Call me Jan.
I'm sorry.
Exactly.
It's like it's a proto Horta.
Yes,
like the
absolutely.
I mean, I think that it probably kind of literally is. I mean, the same people made the Horta.
And I felt so bad for Janos because he's like crawling. Like spread eagle crawling the entire time in that outfit.
I liked when he devoured the one dude.
Yes.
Yeah, we all did.
Well, something happened. I mean, that was good.
But then it turned out no, because he came back at the end and he was on the raft and he escaped.
I didn't like when it humped the raft. That didn't make me happy.
No.
I don't know why that had to be in there.
I mean, again, just look at the cheapness of this moment. Hey, look, this floor.
Okay, but I would like to raise my hand in favor of. I really like that transition where you think they're on the ocean and they think they're on the ocean, and then the camera dollies back and the smoke kind of swirls away, and then you see the floor. I thought that was a good shot.
That's not bad. I mean, that's not bad at all. I mean, it's using what little they have to do something. I mean, I don't think that's bad. It's just
you're wrong.
Well, it's a little bit bad, okay, but I think that the impetus behind it to have a reveal, to have
like an in-camera transition,
and to do, to have something that is a little bit not exactly what we think it is, because everything else on the episode is exactly what we think it is. I mean, I don't know.
At least it full circle sort of gets us back to benevolent aliens.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is true. That is true.
Episode, because the aliens realize, we're harming them, and they just blow up their own probe.
Yes, that's true. I mean, I think in a lot
simply send it away, and I don't know for some reason, but
yeah, I mean, I think that that didn't make a hell of a lot of sense, and then them guessing why and then filling in all of it themselves. It didn't really make a lot of sense either.
They were going to do it. So
but
no one knows those aliens better than this group of people.
Yes, exactly.
If they ever come back,
but I do think that it was it was incredibly clunky, and the fact that we're only guessing that they are that they were benevolent is a thing, but it is a little bit nice anyway to come back to a little bit of humanism in this, and a little bit of that kind of not just monsters are monsters. I mean, so much of the problem with the of the cheapness and all that stuff aside, so much of the problem I think with the second season is just that it's so one-dimensional. Like they approach it like, okay, this is science fiction or something, and then there's monsters in science fiction and blah, blah, blah. And it's very boilerplate. And so much of the first season was about subverting those ideas and giving us something that was unexpected,
But again,
so
as we look at the second season, I would say that episodes like Demon with the Glass Hand and even Soldier to a degree did have a couple lofty ideas, unfortunately mixed in with a lot of shit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just saying, like in in a
Unnecessary.
general way. Like they didn't really like they were approaching it so straightforwardly.
Sure.
Sure. Some writers came in and wrote some good episodes, and those got through.
And that's my question. And truthfully, in terms of all of your investigations, I don't know if it ever came up if Demon with the Glass Hand and Soldier were commissioned prior to the change from Stevens and Stefano to it wasn't okay.
No, they were this season, and I think that I'm of the opinion that Soldier is a pretty compromised show. I wouldn't rank that up with the better ones in a lot of ways. But Demon with the Glass Hand is pretty great. I think that it's just I think these people were working fast. They weren't always even if you don't have any taste, you're still commissioning people. They're doing the work. There's a huge, quick turnaround. At a certain point, you're just going to have to shoot something. And so a lot of, that's also a circumstance where good things can get through because there just isn't time to fuck them up.
What was the two-parter title again?
The Inheritors.
The Inheritors.
The Inheritors. Yeah, and I think there were good ideas in The Inheritors.
Yeah,
but here's the crazy thing. That's written by the same people as this episode. Sam Newman and Selig Lester. So I was like, what happened, guys? What happened, Newman?
The experience I had when I first came to the show was different, I think, than everyone else here because I never really had a differentiation to begin with between season 1 and 2 because when I first saw it, it was like on videotape and it was just sort of you grab one and you don't. Right. At the time, I didn't really pay attention.
Yeah. Sure.
So I was just watching this one or that one and like, oh, I didn't care for that one, but I did like this one. And it wasn't until eventually getting it on DVD you realize, or I'm talking about myself, who actually made the show.
Sure. So speaking of making it, the one thing here is that this one was directed by Felix Feist, this guy who directed. He has one of the great names. But he also directed this movie called Devil Thumbs a Ride, starring Lawrence Tierney, playing a psychopath, which is what Lawrence Tierney always did. But I'm pretty sure that that's one of those movies that there's no version out on any format.
Really?
It's stuck in some weird legal limbo. I saw it 30 years ago in New York at like a film noir festival. And it's one of those that stuck with me. I know, I'm pretty sure that I think it's Barry Gifford wrote a book of film noir essays, and his book is called Devil Thumbs a Ride. And it's one of those movies that I don't know that it was a great movie exactly, but it really stuck with me. And I always associated this director with it. I don't know that he really distinguishes himself here, but I don't really know how you could, considering the incredibly limited circumstances.
Also, to tie it to the last week's episode of To the Outer Limits, Felix Feist also directed Donovan Frame, which was
the Lumiere.
You're right.
Brain of Colonel Parham inspiration. Absolutely, man. And also, I was going to say Felix Feist, of course, sold his soul to the devil and had to deal with the Justice League back in the 30s.
Sure. Yes, of course.
The great thing is, I could have put every dollar I have that you were going to make a Justice League reference and a Felix Faust reference, and you did it. And
that's why I'm here, to annoy Gabe and to make other comic book observations.
You stayed in character. That's all that matters.
Yes, we knew it was going to happen. We teed it up. We've been doing this show for long enough that we know that different people can take on different parts of this, and we knew you were going to come through with that reference.
Exactly.
We didn't get to see like which hat Andy would pick if he came on the last show.
Sadly.
But as Steve Lieber once said when watching this show, it's like I could read a transcript of it with your names removed and tell who said what. And I was like, I'm not sure if it was a compliment.
Maybe
I'm sure
a compliment.
It wasn't.
Honestly, Eddie Muller's making a new noir book that might already be out. I'm not sure, but I know it was coming out some part of the first half of this year. And I wonder if that Tierney movie that Feist made is going to be part of it, because I'm always interested in the orphan films.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're just for rights issues or whatever. There's a lot like that.
Yeah,
Tierney. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. So one of the things that just in encapsulating the unbelievable, like you can always tell when something is written way too fast in a certain way. It's either that there are lines of dialogue that repeat words over and over again, right? Like any second pass would have taken those out. But there's also something like a line in this where one of the characters says, if we're imagining this, we're imagining it together. It's like, what? Like, no, you're imagining it. You're just imagining other people in your imagination, if that's the case. And it just is so, like, kind of lazy and obtuse, and you wrote it too fast, and it's not,
it's
and
romantic.
didn't think it through.
I mean, I always like
the other interpretation.
I always like to think, like, what could they have done given more time, a little extra
Money
and inspiration? Like what could you have done to actually bump up a show to another level? And I don't know, like have one of them be revealed to actually be an alien posing among them or something.
Yeah.
But then you get into the kind of once again alien testing us thing. I do like the fact that it's what they realize is they're kind of insignificant. This is just a big probe that sucked them up because they were in some water.
Right.
Even though the probe was collecting seawater for some reason, like, I don't know, are they a bunch of aquatic beings that are going to come take over our planet at some point? That'd be kind of cool to find out.
And then also poor Peggy Ann Garner subjected to the pole-like phallic glowing telephone pole that
it just comes out and pokes her.
What was that?
Right,
Like,
right,
what
right
was
in the
even
groin.
happening? I mean,
That was to
Right.
guide her to the exit.
yeah, right, okay.
No, it wasn't explicit, right? But I thought it was implicit, at least the way I read it, was that the designers of the probe were actually like giants.
I would imagine so, because they had giant test tubes. How would they handle those test tubes?
They did. Yep.
But they're good enough to reassemble the raft for them. Got to give them that. And because they cut it in half at first.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that is true. And somehow it came back together.
No, that's what it would have made it interesting if they found out, like, oh, this is a thing that's potentially going to colonize Earth, and they find a way to thwart it by sending misinformation back instead of just making it all about how do we let them know that we're trapped on this and we want off.
Right. And ultimately they know, like it's the aliens that know and can understand things, and just the people who can't. If only there was some way that the story was using this problem of communication in order to create interest and conflict that would drive the story forward, instead of just glossing over it in a total and making everything pointless.
Yeah, they're not as good as the people in what's the one where the whole Beverly Hills neighborhood gets stolen?
Oh yeah.
Feasibility study.
Feasibility study, the way the people just ultimately sacrifice themselves so they won't come back for Earth. Whereas
again, that was the first season episode where there was more thought and intent going.
I think that and Stefano wrote that one, and it was just a really. I thought that I mean, I think that's one of the great episodes of the Outer Limits. I think that's what is able to it's. I mean, I was kind of getting at it before, but one of the other issues I have with the second season is just that most of these things are about exactly what they seem to be about. There is no other level to anything. There's no real, I mean, obviously some of the better episodes I'm not talking about here, but many, many of these are just straightforward to the point of diminishing returns. There's nothing to make you feel like it's a richer thing that they're saying, or another level of thing they're saying. They're just saying exactly what they're saying.
Can we get off, please? Because we don't want to go to Venus. It's fine.
Yeah. But granted, we just guessed Venus. That it was going to go to Venus. We didn't know that either. We imagine it probably is.
So let's go around the horn. Which are your favorite episodes? I mean, for me, it's Demon with the Glass Hand and Architects of Fear.
Man Who Was Never Born, the Martin Landau one, Feasibility Study, and absolutely Forms of Things Unknown, the final episode, the sort of backdoor pilot final episode of the first season.
Yeah, that was a great one too. Sure. Everybody
Chameleon. Else? I can't believe you're not saying Chameleon. I love that episode.
That was great. Yep.
No, really anything with ball in, it's great.
Yeah,
I mean, the guy levels it up all by himself, no matter what he does.
absolutely. We should have let everybody prepare for this question, John.
Yeah.
I thought at first John meant, "What's your favorite episode of this show?"
Oh yeah, what's your favorite? No, we know what Jeff's is. Jeff's is the one where every fucking thing went wrong, and then they're communicating with the
Ian
note.
writes a note, and then you have to lean in to read the note, and it's such good video. It's great.
Yeah, that was like a rifle.
Yes, that was my.
You're the alien, and I'm the human. Yeah.
My favorite episode of this podcast was the one where John didn't show up. I barely watched the episode, made no notes, and William and I somehow still struggled through the entire. I think it was me and William, right? Like,
yes,
struggled through the entire episode because he actually did a better job at preparing for it.
I was going to say, you might have shown up every week, but William was always prepared with notes.
William has been a great addition to this. He's brought a point of view that we didn't get otherwise. Ian has been a very has made critical contributions and been a great part of this show. Jeff, when you show up, it's great. Sometimes you just show up after the show. Sometimes you're just like, do I have to show up like last week? Do I have to show up for this thing? No, I'll just show up afafterwards. We'll just talk and chat.
Yeah, it's like the guy that doesn't
have to know that.
But it's good anyway. It's always appreciated. Andy Parks. And if I'm forgetting anybody, I think.
Oh yeah, I think we all agreed on the Galaxy being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good pilot. No, absolutely.
Galaxy being is great. No, I think there are a lot of great episodes of the show, and I think that was the reason to do this in the first place. They just all happen to be like much earlier than the last several weeks.
No question. Absolutely. Again, for people that might have not seen the last couple episodes, where Gabe presents himself in glorious black and white, it is kind of a.
And we were all supposed to do that, but we didn't.
No, not for this show. This is an experimental show. Everything about To the Outer Limits has been an experiment, and a sort of shambolic one at that. But I'm just testing out the black and white so that we can so that when we move on to our next podcast about the early days of live television drama in the 50s, and the first thing that we're going to cover is Rod Serling's Patterns, which is one of the great early live TV episodes. Won an Emmy, established Serling as as a sort of playwright for television, forced to be reckoned with, and is why he was somebody who could go on to make The Twilight Zone. I think that he'd be better served to be remembered for his dramatic work than even for The Twilight Zone, as much impact as that had. And I think that if you go and you watch Patterns, which is available, I believe it's available on YouTube, and it's gettable and it's watchable, and it is while you might think the creakiness of early live TV would not be something you'd enjoy, there is an enormous amount of energy in these shows, and it is like theater and film smashed together at the same time, and something that is enormously exciting and interesting and well written and well performed and just something I've been passionate about for a while. So I'm glad that John and I are going to spend the time reviewing several of these episodes.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
Alone is worth it all.
Say it again, Jeffrey.
I just said Heavyweight Requiem is worth it all.
On our list. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're not only covering Rod Serling ones. I mean, that is a Rod Serling one, which is awesome, and we're going to cover that. But we'll also be covering all these. So much of what that early live TV was about was the enormously talented writers. Also Reginald Rose, also Gore Vidal, and all these people. But also also the directors involved: Sidney Lumet, John Frankenheimer, Arthur Penn, Franklin Schaffner, actors at the beginning, like at the beginnings of their career, or even actors later in their career, like Ed Begley Sr. in Patterns, who gives an incredible performance in under incredibly difficult circumstances. So, there's there's James Dean and all these people who went on to be really, really influential and important. Which is a lot of the reason why I wanted to cover The Outer Limits, not just because it's an interesting show that's not as well remembered as The Twilight Zone, but because all these people like Bruce Dern and Robert Duvall and Robert Pound were all involved in the show and went on to be enormously important in shaping the way that movies went afterwards. So,
yeah, I mean, and then one of the ones that Gabe and I haven't come up with the full master list. But I imagine one of the ones we might do is James Dean only made 4 movies, but made several of these teleplays. And it'll be great to examine that. Paul Newman, Jack Lemmon, Charlton Heston, Rod Steiger, of course, in the original Marty, and then Jack Palance in the original Requiem for a Heavyweight.
Yep.
No, I mean, the era, and we'll address it on the show as well. This is a time where television was so brand new, and it was just because they needed the content, it was a great way for writers to break in, and directors and actors, and nobody was making big money, but it was a chance for their works to be seen beyond the stage in a lot of ways. And again, it was mostly coming from New York, and Ed asked a good question regarding Kinescope. I guess I could do the research, but since you're here, is Kinescope associated with a special lens film format or process? Take it away.
No, it's only a way to describe the process for recording live, the live broadcast, because there was no videotape yet, right? So there was no way to back it up. It was going out live, and then it vanished. So the only way that you could make a record of it was literally pointing a motion picture camera at a monitor and recording it onto film, which is the kidney of the
further, the reason why they had to do it was not to preserve these shows, but to send them off to the West Coast.
Yes,
because this predates the coaxial cable, which allowed coast-to-coast broadcasting.
Right, preserving in the sense that there's some way to rebroadcast it. Yeah,
for the rest of the country.
Yeah, although Patterns was actually, it was done twice, but in order to just by popular.
Well, I'd forgotten that.
I mean, just like on another, they did another production of it, like 2 weeks later or something. We're just starting the other podcast. So
good to tease what we're going to talk about. Should people just be hearing about it now, might want to join us on the journey, because also we're going to take at least a week off to kind of recharge and
probably a week. Yeah, just so that do some research, be prepared.
No, absolutely, man.
Can I say something to the viewer that just asked the question?
Yeah, Ed asked the question. Go on.
Just yesterday, I was Googling kinescopes, and if you look at the image search, you can see these beautiful images of these refrigerator-sized devices with vacuum tubes and cabling and all, and then just the camera sitting on it, and it just, I just think the guts of the machine is just fascinating to look at.
No, and in fact, we teased Shatner when we did our Incubus episode, but I have to say, and again, Shatner can't help it; he only speaks in word jazz. But his descriptions of live TV and having to deal with the gigantic cameras and the fans to keep them cool and the red light and how really intimidating it was. And I mean, it's this energy, as Gabe described, and that's really the only way to describe the entire production. And watch things like, and maybe we'll, in addition to looking at the kinescopes themselves, we might watch some things like there's Rod Serling's For Your Consideration documentary that is also on YouTube. It was a public television production, and you get Frankenheimer talking about himself and Serling in the control room during these live shows, and just the amount of stress that they went through. So really, beyond the kidneys themselves, I would recommend, I always talk about it, the Academy of Television's TV interview archive. If you look on YouTube under TV Legends, you'll find snippets, but they will lead you to full interviews. And literally, Reginald Rhodes, Arthur Penn, Jack Lemmon, Frankenheimer, all these people that were still living had an opportunity to talk about these shows. And it's just amazing. And also to compare them not only on their own, but in the cases where they then became films, like Patterns and Marty and Judgment at Nuremberg. These are
Days of Wines and Roses.
Days of
Wine and Roses, yeah.
And I can tell you, one of our favorite comic creators has already said, if you're doing that show, I want in. So you'll likely see him. It might be a pre-recorded one, given his schedule.
It's Kurt Schaffenberger, but yeah,
it is Kurt Schaffenberger who's been.
And also, speaking of Shatner, I mean, one of the things we can conceivably cover is A Town Turned to Dust that Shatner is in, another Sterling episode. So there's, I mean, all I'm saying is, if you've never checked out these kind of things before, there's a lot of interesting, exciting material there that that doesn't that everybody doesn't it's not a go-to thing for everybody to talk about, because so much of it was so ephemeral, and it hasn't really, and they're anthologies, so they don't get rebroadcast as much.
Right.
But it is. But we're in a lucky moment in a certain way, because so much of this stuff is so accessible and out there in ways that just wasn't before on YouTube. And so we can do a show about it because people are able to watch them, and there isn't this giant barrier to seeing the material.
It's like a video book club, essentially, and that's again and much more accessible than some of the leapfrogging we had to do with Outer Limits being on Amazon Prime, briefly being on Roku, having to go to Daily Motion maybe to see a lot of those second season episodes. And to answer Tony here, who says, will this include the Westinghouse dramas? Well, that was one of the big shows, and wasn't that Studio One?
I think that's correct. I mean, but look, that's why we're taking the week off, so that I can do more research on this stuff. So when we come back and we do the first episode, we will have these answers for you.
Indeed. That means Gabe wants to wrap up. All right, everybody, that's it.
You're right, though. That it really it's kind of funny how appropriately the Outer Limits keeps going as it goes on. It keeps going to more terrible places for us to have to stream it.
Yes.
To watch the episodes.
Yeah. So hopefully this will not be the case with the Kinescope podcast.
Well, good luck, guys, because you're going to be up against my Night Gallery podcast.
Oh man,
I really kind of prepared some stuff. So,
but you're gonna invite us as guests on your Night Gallery podcast, right? I mean, look at how nice we were, and inviting, and
All right, Gullible Gary has to ask: are you really? I really hope you are going to do a Night Gallery podcast, Jeffrey.
Well, if we should we should come back when you guys get done with that. Maybe we can do a Night Gallery special.
Yeah. Talk about bad episodes. My God,
I'm going with John Aston as a hippie in hell. I got to get that one in there.
The Bill Bixby one with Douglas with
he turns to a statue.
Yes.
Look, and there comes shit out of me when I was a kid.
Succumbs to lust and totally mauls Donna Douglas before he turns into a statue. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure I've talked about it before, but there's an episode that to this day disturbs me when I think back on it, and disturbed me more than anything I saw as a kid. With Rudy Valley in it, and he chops off what's his name, Morse, the guy from
Howie Morse.
No, the guy from Mad Men.
Robert Morse.
Robert Morse. He chopped there. He at some point in it he says, "I took the liberty of removing your feet," and that single line disturbed me more than anything in my childhood. So I want to be a guest on that episode, or I don't. I'm not sure.
Tony makes a good point here, and yes, there was a Westinghouse court drama that had Shatner, Steve McQueen, and others. That's The Defenders. Ralph Bellamy playing the elder lawyer, and Shatner playing his son. It later became a '60s TV drama with E.G. Marshall and Mr. Brady, Robert Reed. So that's certainly on our general list. And I think we want to, again, we weren't sure how many episodes we'll do for Kinescope, but we're considering a lot of these, and that's certainly one of them.
And on some level, it's like a limited series or a season of it or whatever, and then maybe we come back and do more of them if we want at some point, but like I think we're going to do a sort of contained like 12 episode thing or something like that.
It sounds like it's going to be very classy. The way I'm
look at the black and white over here. Look how fucking classy this is. It's all going to be like this.
This isn't going to be one of those. John goes off talking about how's Del Vecchio going to get out of this situation.
Look,
It's going to be.
trust me. When if John has his way, we're going to get some garbage in here somehow.
Oh
so
man,
trust me.
are you kidding? Absolutely, man. Well, no, and again, really interesting performances, atypical of what you might know these stars and directors and writers for. And I think again, I'm so glad that Gabe suggested it, and I'm like, yes, please, because we both have separately been buying the Criterion collections and Studio Ones and the various DVDs that have been out there for some of these shows. I wish some of them were available on YouTube the way they were. In fact, there's one Serling episode, The Velvet Alley, with Art Carney and Jack Klugman, that isn't on YouTube. And I was trying to look up and say, well, maybe people could buy it. You can't even currently, it's unavailable. It was through Warner's archive, I thought. And I would assume, because it was always print to order. But as far as
Warner Archive is perhaps not going to be with us.
I think you're right. Man.
So, anyways, I think that we probably have wrapped it up for the Outer Limits. While I was incredibly reticent about the idea of being a podcaster, I'm still glad that I spent this last year doing this, which gave a little bit of focus during the pandemic.
I want to publicly say thank you, gentlemen, for inviting me on your program. I thought I'd be kicked off for sure halfway through the first one. That did not occur.
No, you were the most thoughtful one.
Yeah, look, you always had something different and interesting to say, which is exactly what we need. We don't need everybody saying the same thing.
No, I certainly hope that all of you, and including Andy Parks and some of the other guest stars that we have lined up, do come back and provide us with as much interesting discussion as we've had onto the Outer Limits. So I thank you all. And we will wrap things up. We hope you've enjoyed it. So be prepared in a couple of weeks for Kinescope, which will be coming to a show near you. But in the meantime, until then, we'll be off next week, and then we'll return with a look at the golden age of television through our new show here, Kinescope. Everybody stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy. Take care, everybody.